We are talking about the festive-themed horror movie Better Watch Out, directed by Chris Peckover. Now, I would say this can be watched as a companion piece to the recent movie The Babysitter. Now, the story here I'll have to be somewhat vague on, and I will say this movie is best off going in completely blind. Don't even watch the trailers. I won't go into spoilers in this review, so thus the synopsis is going to be somewhat vague. But just go into this movie with no kind of like idea about what it is, other than it's kind of a home invasion film. So the story here, we have this kind of like this 17-year-old girl has been babysitting this now 12-year-old lad for some time, and she's planning to kind of move away to a different area, and this is going to be the kind of the final time that she's going to be babysitting for him over the kind of the holiday period. And him and his kind of like dopey friend end up kind of like obviously staying there, and there seems to be some kind of like home invasion happening on this particular night. However, things take a kind of dark and unexpected twist. That's all I'm going to say on the plot. So what do we think of Better Watch Out? Now, I will say this, the way this movie has been portrayed in the kind of the trailers and stuff like that, I have seen some backlash in regards to people kind of feeling they were somewhat misled and kind of led to believe it was kind of like a more adult version of Home Alone. It really isn't, and I feel a lot of the criticisms are people getting something that they weren't expecting, and that's kind of really kind of knocking this film down. Whilst I don't think that's fair, personally I think you have to judge a film on what it actually is rather than what you were kind of expecting it to be. I will say this movie has a very kind of like dramatic shift in tone. When you first watch this movie, and I didn't really know much about it kind of going in. I did see the trailer, but I couldn't really remember a lot about it, if I'm honest. But it kind of starts out like it's going to be this kind of like a horror comedy. It even kind of starts off like things like weird science and stuff like that. You have the kind of the two parents played by, I think it's Virginia Madsen and Patrick Warburton, who are like mega kind of like jokey, and it seems very, very kind of light-hearted and kind of like a comedy-filled movie. I guess kind of like The Babysitter to a certain degree. But let me tell you, this movie gets pretty dark, and it completely changes the tone of the movie when it kind of, from when you first start out. By the end of the film, it's a completely different style of movie, and that kind of, you know, that progresses over the kind of the course of the film. So be prepared for a dramatic shift in tone, first of all. So let's talk about what I liked. I thought the idea here was quite fun. It actually reminds me of The Babysitter mixed with American Psycho at Christmas. That's the best way I would describe this movie. I think there's a twist early on, and unusually, obviously, with most films you get a twist towards the end. This one, the film is probably in the first act, and therefore, obviously, it kind of informs the rest of the story. That was kind of quite fun, and I thought the twist was quite fun and kind of different, although it's not entirely unfamiliar. But it was kind of like a neat kind of like spin on this kind of genre. And like I said, if you watch it as a companion piece to The Babysitter, they make quite a nice pair, if I'm completely honest. It plays like the kind of the opposite version of the Babysitter to a certain degree, so it's quite fun. And you kind of don't know where the film's going. Ultimately, when we see this film and we kind of see it, you know, see the antagonists, you don't really know what the end game is. And I'll be honest, I still don't. I don't know what the kind of the mission statement was for these antagonists to what their end game was. It's never really made clear, and I guess that's one of the critiques I would have with it. I think the performances here are very good. From one character in particular, I feel does a great range of kind of emotions, and you know, it really does prove that they are a pretty damn good actor, really kind of making you feel all sorts of different things. It's a very hard movie to review without kind of revealing anything, to be honest. The actual babysitter character herself, again, I feel does a great kind of like job here of kind of really selling you realistic reactions, I think, to things that would happen. I feel it maybe if I had to critique this film again, there are some kind of like peripheral characters who just seem to act in very stereotypical ways and kind of do things without question. And, you know, in these films you always think, what would I do in that situation? And there may be a couple of occasions when some of the minor characters you think you wouldn't do that, or you would do that instead, for example. But nonetheless, this movie is a dark Christmas movie. It is a pretty mean-spirited movie, I would say. So don't be expecting a festive, fun, kind of like horror comedy, even like The Babysitter. The Babysitter still had a kind of even though that had dealt with some death and things, it still had a kind of sense of fun. This movie starts off that way, but it definitely goes into a dark place. It's a hard movie to talk about without really kind of going into it too much, because I can't really spoil anything. So kind of 2/3 of this movie I can't really talk about. Suffice it, I thought it was a well-paced film. I thought the twist was good. Maybe it would have been nice to have something else happen towards the end, but you know, overall I think this is an enjoyable film. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. I think it's a well-made horror film. I feel it's, you know, it kind of like plays with expectations, particularly if you don't kind of go knowing anything about this film. I would definitely check it out. It's a real fun companion piece to put with the kind of The Babysitter and watch it as maybe as a double feature. I would definitely recommend that. 7 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to it.